Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sustainable Innovation for Interiors. I'm Silvia from DforDesign, interior design and content creation studio with a focus on sustainability and biophilic design. In this series, we are going to meet designers that are developing new ideas that can help make interiors more sustainable. In this first episode, we are meeting Sara Howard, ceramic designer and materials researcher. So let's welcome Sara.
Hey there.
Hi there. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
I'm well.
Okay, so let's start, I would say, with a short introduction about you as a designer and how you chose to put sustainability at the heart of what you do.
Sure. So, my name is Sara, and my latest collection is called Circular Ceramics. And I just graduated from a ceramic design course here in London last summer. And that is where I developed all the sustainable materials and developed my practice. And my practice is basically circular ceramics is based on the use of the use of industrial waste from multiple industries to replace the raw materials in ceramic production. So ultimately, it diverts waste away from landfill and reduces the consumption of finite raw materials.
Which is an amazing thing to do, actually. Um, Next question is more of a general one because sustainability is such a wide word. It's a multifaceted term. So I always like to ask, what does the word sustainability mean to you personally?
So ceramics is made entirely from naturally occurring materials, many of which are mined. So in terms of this project, the sustainability focus is on the mined materials, which has an ecological and also societal impact, and how we can avoid using those materials and instead use the byproducts of other industries. So these materials that would otherwise go to landfill from the byproducts of other industries, we can use to replace the raw materials in ceramics. So ultimately, it is landfill and basically the complete reduction of raw materials.
Emptying landfills, we would say, could be a good
Well,
slogan.
instead of emptying them, I think I just divert a little bit
Yeah,
away.
that would be the
Yeah, of
ultimate
course.
objective. Okay, so now talking about your circular ceramic project,
Mhm.
which is a project, as you said, a tableware collection that's made, diverting waste from landfill instead of using virgin raw materials. Maybe you can walk us through it a little bit more, how you came to the idea of developing such a product and where you source your raw materials as well.
Yeah, so I work with the glass industry, the stone industry, construction, and I'm continuing to grow on the industries that I utilize waste from. So I just recently started to work with the metal and quarry industry, but I basically went about it by looking at what industries consume the same raw materials as the ceramics industry, and then I went to their manufacturing sites and examined all their waste streams and looked at what was either being downcycled or basically being sent to landfill.
Yeah.
There are some materials, like maybe the glass shards from the glass industry, which can be infinitely recycled without losing purity. So I wouldn't touch materials like those, which can continue to act as a resource for them. So what I use from the glass industry is a slurry, which is basically small particles of glass, and this is really toxic and hazardous to the environment when you dispose of it because it leaches into the soil, into agriculture, and it can really disrupt the ecosystems. So those are the materials that I work with, and exclusively um, what would go to waste, nothing that can be utilized in a better way. So you
Okay.
have to, for me, I judge how beneficial it is to that industry, to my industry, and also the wider society and ecology.
So you actually, as a process, you really just went to the manufacturer site, contacting them and say, I would like to use your waste. What was the reaction of the people? Because not everyone is so used to the fact of using and reusing and giving value to waste.
Yeah, exactly. So the guy where I get my glass waste from, when I first contacted them, I initially contacted everyone by email, but often what I'm trying to do doesn't translate very well, and people become very suspicious or cautious of what I'm trying to get at. But so I just tend to rock up at their manufacturing sites, or these are all local manufacturers not far from where I live. And I go in person to explain what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to research, and my end goal. And some people, some of the owners really are interested in what I'm working towards, but some of them couldn't care less, but that's fine because they still give me their waste.
Oh,
Um,
okay, okay, that's good.
and then maybe industries like the construction industry, I found really hard to get into because I think maybe they're more secretive about their practice and the waste streams and how they deal with their materials.
Okay.
So it wasn't, I managed to get through to a guy eventually, but probably that was the hardest one to get
Okay.
into. But making that initial contact is probably the hardest bit.
But overall, you've got, you had a good experience so far, right? Because everyone, more or less, everyone gave you their
Yeah,
waste, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Some just take more time than others,
In
basically.
convincing. Okay. Oh, wow, that's great, because that's what something I was curious about. How people just, yeah, just respond to a person asking for waste, because it's not that everyone is so used to it, right?
Well, ultimately, it benefits them as much as it benefits me because they have to pay to dispose of their waste, and it can come up. It can sum up to quite a lot. So me taking maybe just 30 kilos of that can really save them a lot of money, and that's why this is something that could be scalable in that sense because everyone has benefits from the process and not just the environment.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. There was a figure that I found on your website that's pretty incredible. When you say that waste is created at all stages of the production of ceramic, and you
Mhm.
said that for during extraction, for every ton of clay quarried, 9 tons of waste is produced, which is a staggering number. And I was wondering, because of course, in every stage of production, you get a slightly different material, right? Because if it's in extraction, it will be a super raw material, and
Mhm.
going more further, further on production, it will be a more refined material. So, can you, in your project, reuse every stage of the waste? Can you reuse everything at the same level?
In terms of reusability, you're very limited in the actual ceramic process because there's so many chemical compound changes that occur from firing at
Exactly.
such a high temperature. That after you fired it, the bisque fire, which is the first one, and then you've got the glaze firing, which is the second. It completely alters the material, and once the kiln gets up to 573 degrees in the kiln, you can't revert it back into clay. So any offcuts, trimmings of the vessel before it's bisque fired can be recycled, but ultimately, once it's gone past that point, traditionally it can't. But ceramics is viewed as like a very sustainable material, but there's a big part of it which isn't, and because we don't see the 9 tons of waste for every ton of clay quarried. When ceramicists order their bag of clay, they think they've just got their clay in a plastic bag and that's it. What they don't see is the 9 times of waste that was produced in order to just get that to their studio, let alone all the waste that is produced in their making process. But even just to mine, so that figure is from in St Austell, which is the China clay mines in Cornwall in UK. But when you mine for raw materials, you have got to mine all the ores, and that produces maybe 320 times more waste than just to get that one piece of raw materials. So because you've got to excavate so much rock and mica to get to all the mineral deposits. And yeah, that's things we don't see as a consumer or even a ceramic producer when you can order everything that you need online and it just comes to your door.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's staggering to see behind the scenes of what happens, and really realize how much of what we consume, how much waste is created in what we actually put on our tables, quite literally in this case.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so you said already how you source your materials, which is really, going knocking the doors of the producers. And then how does the process work? How did you, because I saw on your Instagram as well that you use like glass for the glazing, clay for,
Mhm.
stone for the clay. So maybe you can explain a little bit more
Yeah.
how different kind of waste become a different component of the final product.
Yeah, so you have in ceramics you have the clay body and then you have the glaze, and the glaze is made up of silicas, aluminas, fluxes, and then you have the coloring oxides. but basically each waste stream can be substituted for each one of those. So the glass, which is the silica, so that's the glass former, that substitutes that. We have the stone waste, and that substitutes the flux. And then all the colouring oxides are substituted from the metal industry, from their waste, and the excavation waste from the construction industry replaces the clay body. So that's how it all comes together. But you aren't restricted to using all of those waste streams in one product. You could substitute maybe like 50%, 75% waste into your products, and that's what part of my book is about, is helping other ceramicists make these substitutions in their own work so that they can still keep the outcome and the surface that they want without having to produce exactly the same finish that I produce in my work. Like the last thing I'd want is that all ceramics look the same, but they're sustainable, so that you're still able to achieve diversity. And it's these small changes, I think, that will help ceramicists sort of work towards a high percentage of waste in their work, and explore more options as well in what waste streams they use from their local resources, which I might not have availability to.
Yeah, true. And on this topic, actually, if you were to create, to make a different type of ceramic with respect to yours, and make maybe one that's more colorful, where could you go and source some waste somewhere to create a more sustainable pigment for ceramic?
Yeah, so there's artists and designers who source raw materials, whether it's from like foraging. It could be foraging volcanic rock or different rocks in their area. It could be going to their local mines. It depends where you're based, whether it's cities or the countryside. But I think that's what's really great about waste, is that it's so specific depending on your location.
Yeah.
And people will have access to waste that aren't on my doorstep. But that's what allows the different finishes and different outcomes in their work. So yeah, there's artists that source their raw materials from mines in Cornwall, whether it's like the tin and copper mines, and that gives them like colourful, the use of colourful oxides in their work. But I don't know, I in the book that I write, I set out the parameters in how ceramicists can go about doing this and substitute it in their work. And like, I hope by doing that, I encourage people to really like delve into what is available to them and see if they can use colourful.
One thing that I really, really appreciated is that you are actually sharing your process and what you have learned through your process with a book that, and in your website, interestingly, you said that it's, directed both to smaller creators and to mass manufacturing, because really the idea is making it more diffused, right?
Exactly. So I know by me producing my own tableware, it's really not going to have a huge impact on the industry or on the environment as a whole. But by sharing my research and my findings with fellow ceramicists, what I hope to do is create a proof of concept to mass manufacturers who are more than often hesitant to make these big changes in their manufacturing process. So what my goal is as a designer is to create that systemic change rather than be a designer who has like a product range. And yeah, I'm going to be working with mass producers to make that change in their industrial process, rather than just making more stuff for the world, which we definitely don't need, because we've just been, as consumers, we've been overwhelmed with option and choice. And I could have the power to change what a mass producer is doing rather than try and compete with them as a small business.
Yeah. And what kind of a response have you had so far? At least I'm not sure when your book was released, but so far, what kind of a feedback have you had from other ceramists and maybe also mass producers, as you said?
Yeah. So I released it last year as part of my graduation project, because I basically didn't have access to the studios last year. So instead of developing my ceramic tableware, I wrote a book. Which was something that I was going to do, but I sort of invested more time into that because the world allowed me to do that then. And actually it had more longevity in terms of the impact that it could create globally. So I've had interest globally, which has been like really amazing, and people have been really open to trying it. I don't know how many people have actually made the changes to their work and applied it. I know that maybe like a handful of people have shown me the way that they've responded and incorporated it into their world, into their ceramics. And that's been really exciting and motivating for me in doing what I do, just to like influence a few people. Um, but there's definitely interest, but I don't know what the interest transferring to actually adopting these methods has been so far. But I'm working with different brands. There's been a lot of interest from brands who want to collaborate and help them produce a range which uses the waste that I use. So it's a growing interest. I think it will take time, and it's not something that I ever expect to happen in a year or something. It's definitely like a long
Long thing,
it's going to be a long journey, but that's what I'm prepared for. And
yeah,
then
that's great. Yeah, that's great that also, as you say, brands are actually coming to you, because usually, many times at least, this kind of changes come from smaller creators, and then
yeah,
the difficult thing is really bringing them out into the world in the quantity, and and making
yeah.
them widespread.
So and then from working with small brands, I was meant to work with a mass manufacturer last year, but the way the world went, it couldn't happen. But I've now got a plan in place for this year to be a sustainable consultant and really have a big influence in the materials, the process that using as well. So thinking about the end life of the object and also the process that we use to create these objects and ensuring that's as sustainable as it can be with the technology that we have.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And now that you say that, did the way the world changed, the pandemic, etc., change your plans? And how maybe because as you said, you could not go to your studio creating practically tableware. So
Yeah.
did it change your plans, or it did only like anticipate something that you wanted to do afterwards, and how you're planning to, to respond
Yeah.
to this whole crazy world and situation?
Yeah. So I love planning everything excessively to a T. So in like January 2020 or even December 2019, I knew exactly what I was going to do end of 2020. And yeah, everything just got thrown up, but as it did for everyone. And yeah, I was telling you, the book actually probably was more powerful than a tableware collection and influencing people. And then I plan to move to Sri Lanka in that September to implement those material changes on a mass scale, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And I was really excited for that opportunity to scale up. And I had to go abroad to do this because the factories in the UK are quite strict in what they produce. They've been making the same thing for 500 years, and they're not too willing to change, or they're not. But yeah, they don't have that urgency that I feel in making changes. They like to stick to tradition. So by going abroad and working with these factories that can be a bit more flexible and they're more willing to explore alternative materials, that was right up my street. But I couldn't go, and I've ended up teaching this year at universities and at my studio and giving talks like this. So it's been a good year, and then I've managed to secure a job at another manufacturer, but in another country. So that's the end of this year, maybe. We'll see. But I'm not setting my hopes on. I'm learning that you can't plan too far ahead anymore. So
yeah.
it's
So
just
you definitely made a lemonade with lemons from life, actually.
yeah, I tried.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. What was my next question? Yeah, this is more of a general question that I always like to ask, because as you are very much aware of, we live in a world where we need sustainable development urgently and in every field. So maybe your work answers a little bit the questions, but still I'm going to ask this. In the design field in general, so broadly, not just ceramic, what do you think could speed up the change or help bring a bigger awareness, or just really speed up the transition towards more sustainable standards?
I think something really powerful that could really cause rapid change are laws, simply laws. Like after the Industrial Revolution, we had the Clean Air Act in the UK, and that put in laws in place that industry were forced to adjust to. They had to eliminate certain use of materials. I only know this from like the ceramics industry, but I know it affected other industries as well. So we had to completely eliminate the use of a certain glaze in the ceramics industry in the 1967 because it was polluting the atmosphere so much. And like by putting in these laws, I think that's the only thing that will force industry to change, apart from the consumer behavior, of course. But that's something a bit that takes a longer time to adjust to, because it's hard to get everyone on board straight away and change our habits. So I think we need laws desperately, and whether it restricts the kind of materials we can use or whether it restricts mining operations, coal, oil, gas. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that would create rapid change.
Yeah, and now then I'm wondering what can we do to kind of help these laws come together? Because the other day I saw a petition. I signed a petition for the
Yeah.
EU to require change from bottom up. But I'm always wondering how can we do something to, because I totally agree that laws would make a huge difference. Also bringing on board people that are, and industries and companies that would not necessarily be on board, but then are forced to. So the bottom line is a better result. So
Yeah.
I'm always wondering how we can, in your opinion, so I'm asking it to you because I don't know, how we can push for a change and help these laws being, enforced.
I was going to say petitions, but I know petitions are quite a long road in order to even get it addressed in court.
Exactly.
But perhaps it's just sharing if we can't go down that route, it's sharing awareness and also offering alternative options so people have a viable option that they can switch to, because that is the main reason that people aren't able to switch from that linear behaviors to the circular behaviors. So yeah, I don't,
I mean, it's interesting because yes, still there, it's still true that laws are important and that would do, that would do a lot. But still, we can do something, as creators and things to raise awareness, as you said. And,
I think
it's also the reason why I do what I do. So we push through.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to put their morals before their money, so they're willing to invest or spend more money to make that better choice for the long run. And
100%.
Yeah. So
and that's also the result of more awareness that's being
exactly, whether it's from like activism or educational shows or exhibitions, but they're definitely becoming more common, and also they're spreading to every field of creativity, and so we're getting fed all this information from every angle. So hopefully that continues, and as well as the laws.
Totally agree. When you said, with your work, like consultancy and consulting other creators, you are kind of already doing something to make your personal project scalable. So that, because when I looked at your work, I was like, now I want circular tableware on everyone's table. It would be so great. But of course, as you said, it takes a lot of time to bring people on board, etc. So how are you planning, if you are planning to, make your project more scalable? Is it through consultancy, as you said, or maybe you have something more in planned?
Yeah, so my goal isn't to have my own tableware, although that is something that I have done. To me, that's just an example. It's like an example of what is possible for other brands, other manufacturers. Like, this is what you can do. So I have that tableware for that reason, but that's not something that I want to scale up and mass produce that. So what I intend to do is, as a sustainable consultant, work with those people who are already producing and basically work with them to produce in a more sustainable manner. And by doing that, I hope that I can go there for 6 months, develop these materials, develop a better process for them, and then I can leave and they will continue to operate in that way. That's the goal, I think. And I think globally, I will have a bigger impact on the environment that way, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And on a more, on the communication side of things, how are you trying to reach these people that you are trying to influence and consult with?
Well, I should use social media more, but
No, I mean, I was not saying that you have to do something.
yeah. Social media is a great platform.
Okay.
I'm not that efficient on it, and I know it, but I find myself like so busy in like doing the work that I do that having to worry about that side of it is a bit much. But for me, I don't think finding the clients is a huge issue. There's definitely the interest. It's
Okay.
about if they're willing to firstly make the changes, invest that time it takes to develop the materials for their products, and secondly, like have the money to finance the whole process as well. But once you have the process, they have the feasibility to run it without me, so I'm not needed when they have everything set up. Um, but yeah, the interest is there. It's just having the knowledge, the skills, and also the money. That these aren't You're not going to be able to churn out a different product like every 2 months, like maybe bigger companies are. They try and keep up with the trends. Right, I want to design products that are timeless and will outlast all these trends, so that they're not being basically churned in mass
Yeah,
production.
it's a big change. It's a big
Yeah,
change for a lot of manufacturers, right?
yeah, yeah.
And did it already happen to you to have someone that was in principle interested in changing, but then found some, practical obstacle like budget, as you said, and could not pursue it? Did it
Yeah,
happen already? It happened.
yeah. Money is probably the biggest issue, and it's only because I'm a small business I don't have like the technology or the facilities to turn a lot of these waste into the new raw material um, like rapidly or quickly. It takes time. I'm doing it all by hand, so it is a slow process in that sense, and therefore it does cost more. But I think as time goes on, maybe I can invest in machinery that I can put in my garden or something.
Okay.
But yeah, the money's the obstacle, but it's only something that will get cheaper with time. So I'm sure those boundaries will, yeah, be able to kind of soon. We'll see.
Become smoother with time. Okay. That's great. I mean, so actually, your tableware is not on sale because it was just a showcase of what can be done, right?
No, it is on sale at some
It is.
shops. Yeah,
You
yeah,
need to where?
yeah. The Home of Sustainable Things in Islington, and I will set up an e-commerce on my
Okay,
website soon, maybe.
that's great. Good
I'm
to
not
know.
a date on it because I don't want to rush.
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah,
takes time, of course.
yeah.
And again, so now thinking ahead, when you will
Mhm.
have maybe your e-shop set up and you will, sell your own tableware collection and consult, are you planning to scale up in the sense of having maybe someone help you, or you plan to stay alone and keep doing the two things? And I mean, if that's the answer, I would understand perfectly, because I also do things left and right alone. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just a question, a choice.
yeah. I love working with people, and I can definitely see the value in people have other skills that I don't have, whether it's like um, in the graphics or in the selling part. Um, like there's people who are way better at that than me. So I definitely would be great to work with someone, especially when I'm abroad. They can take over what me producing my work here. But otherwise, I was just planning to have my work stocked at these shops, which like these shops that I stock at are great because they are exhibited like they're sold alongside other objects that are sustainably focused, and it's almost like an exhibition rather than like your everyday shop. So it's really I'm flattered to be for my work to be shown amongst those people because that's incredible. But yeah, I'm always open to scaling up. But I feel like I'm very early into this, and I'm not really set out on my path. I don't know where it will take me, so I might end up traveling for quite a while after like this period at the end of the year, or I may come back and produce more of my own plates. But
Yeah,
I
you
don't know.
have
I don't
options.
know.
Yeah. Also
Yeah,
according to how the world just develops, right?
yeah, exactly. So I'm open to anything, and I'm
We can
learning to
do
be
things these
flexible.
days.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a very interesting conversation. I would stay here hours, but unfortunately our time is over. So thank you so much for your time, for being with us. Thanks everyone who listened for tuning in, and thanks to Isola Design District for hosting this talk. I will see you next time in the next episode of Sustainable Innovation for Interiors. And until then, take care and stay safe. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Ciao, Sara. Thanks a lot.